In this podcast episode, Dr. Marc Brackett, a Yale professor and expert in emotional intelligence, shares his mission to ignite an emotion revolution. His core belief centers on the idea that feelings, often feared or avoided, are transient experiences rather than defining aspects of identity. With nearly 3 decades of experience developing emotional intelligence curricula used in thousands of schools worldwide, Dr. Brackett elaborates on the critical importance of understanding, regulating, and using emotions effectively for leading more meaningful and connected lives. Dr. Brackett opens by emphasizing the societal resistance to self-awareness, which he finds baffling, given self-awareness is a fundamental human right. He observes that feelings evoke fear because people mistakenly conflate momentary emotions with their core identity. This misunderstanding leads to avoidance or suppression of feelings, particularly strong or negative ones, causing undue hardship in personal and social realms. Highlighting his primary work through the Ruler program, which has reached millions of children, he stresses that emotional intelligence training is essential for both children and adults, yet remains largely absent from educational systems. He sees this omission as a significant blind spot in preparing young people for the complexities of modern life, particularly with rapid technological shifts changing social dynamics. Dr. Brackett also calls attention to the particular challenges men face in discussing emotions, illustrating this with poignant examples from his public speaking experiences. Fathers often fear showing vulnerability with their sons, mistakenly believing it signals weakness, which compounds emotional suppression across generations. This dynamic underscores why emotional literacy must become mainstream and normalized, taking a primary role in parenting and education to break unhealthy cycles and promote healthier, more open emotional conversations. Throughout the conversation, Dr. Brackett carefully distinguishes between related affective experiences, emotions, feelings, moods, dispositional affect, and clinical diagnoses. He clarifies that emotions are automatic, often subconscious responses to external or internal stimuli, shaping attention, motivation, and behavior. Our cultural and developmental context also shapes emotional experiences, making them uniquely personal. Moods, in contrast, are longer-lasting and less intense emotional states, while feelings are subjective experiences that may be vaguer or less intense than emotions. Importantly, he notes that emotions are impermanent and constantly shifting, a fact that can be liberating once understood. The episode underscores the confusion many have between emotions and thoughts, or the tendency to define ourselves by our emotional states. Dr. Brackett advocates for breaking this harmful self-identification to foster emotional agility and resilience. By understanding the nuances and complexities of emotional experiences, people are better equipped to process and respond thoughtfully rather than reactively. Dr. Brackett makes an incontestable case that emotions deeply influence virtually every aspect of human life, structuring 5 pillars: attention and memory, decision-making, relationship quality, mental and physical health, and performance in school or work environments. Despite their all-encompassing effect, emotions are often misunderstood or disregarded as uncontrollable background noise. While emotional responses arise involuntarily, how we interpret and manage these feelings lies within our agency. This awareness forms the foundation for emotional intelligence as a critical life skill. The episode repeatedly stresses that improving emotional regulation can transform personal productivity, satisfaction, and relationships, and that neglecting emotional education leads to reactivity, dysfunctional coping, and missed opportunities for growth. Dr. Brackett's conviction is clear. To live a successful and meaningful life demands an intentional relationship with our emotions. At the heart of Dr. Brackett's work lies the Ruler framework for emotional intelligence, which outlines 5 key skills. The conversation delves into each, beginning with recognition, learning to identify emotions accurately in ourselves and others by attending to cues such as facial expressions, tone, and body language. Recognition includes self-awareness and social awareness, both fundamental for navigating complex social milieus. Understanding emotions refers to grasping their causes and consequences. For instance, distinguishing anger as a reaction to perceived injustice from disappointment as unmet expectations sharpens our responses and empathy. Labeling emotions with precise vocabulary is critical, as it brings clarity, facilitates communication, and offers the crucial cognitive pause needed to engage regulation strategies. Dr. Brackett stresses the importance of avoiding fuzzy emotional words by developing nuanced emotional literacy. Expressing emotions becomes safest and most effective when social environments foster trust and non-judgment. The final skill, regulation, involves deploying cognitive and behavioral strategies to modulate emotional experiences in service of goals and relationships. These skills build on each other to create a comprehensive toolkit for emotional mastery and well-being. A profound theme in the dialogue is the distinction between self-awareness and self-indulgence. Dr. Brackett warns against confusing thoughtful introspection with prolonged rumination or obsessive focus on feelings, which can lead to paralysis or over-identification with emotional states. He encourages regular, intentional check-ins, brief pauses to assess feelings and their origins, especially during daily transitions such as moving from home to work. This simple practice cultivates freedom and presence, preventing distraction by unresolved emotions. Rather than dwelling endlessly, self-awareness is framed as a strategic tool that supports mindful behavior and emotional regulation. The conversation calls for a mindful middle path, embracing emotions without being consumed by them, which is essential for maintaining balance. Dr. Brackett brings attention to how cultural norms and early socialization shape emotional expression and interpretation. The age-old stereotype, "boys don't cry," is not biological but learned, affecting how men especially relate to their emotions and others. The social context also colors how people read and react to emotions, leading to misunderstandings and miscommunications. This cultural conditioning extends into institutional behaviors, from parenting to education, often reinforcing emotional avoidance rather than emotional literacy. By acknowledging these patterns, individuals and institutions can consciously break free from harmful traditions. The goal is a more deliberate, empathetic cultivation of emotional competencies that honors individual differences and promotes inclusivity. One of the episode's central messages is the elevation of emotional regulation as the master skill humans need for effective functioning. Dr. Brackett posits that alongside cognitive capacities, the ability to modulate one's emotional responses determines success in relationships, work, and health. Importantly, emotional regulation is entirely learnable and consists of a set of goals, such as preventing, reducing, initiating, maintaining, or enhancing emotions, and numerous strategies, ranging from cognitive reframing to behavioral activation. He provides compelling examples from his own life and work contexts, illustrating how tailored regulation strategies correspond to specific emotions, individual characteristics, and situational constraints. The relational and situational specificity of these strategies underlines that emotional regulation is neither formulaic nor one-size-fits-all, but adaptive and context-sensitive. A particularly moving segment centers on the concept of permission to feel, the fundamental right to experience emotions fully and without judgment. Dr. Brackett credits an influential figure from his childhood, affectionately called Uncle Marvin, who embodied this permission by actively listening, showing empathy, and withholding judgment. This presence profoundly shaped Dr. Brackett's personal and professional trajectory. Research he cites reveals that only about 1/3 of people globally recall having such emotional allies during childhood, with lasting differences in mental health, life satisfaction, and purpose between those who did and those who did not. The episode compellingly argues for the creation of more Uncle Marvins in families, schools, and workplaces as a form of social and emotional infrastructure that nurtures resilience and well-being. Dr. Brackett introduces the concept of the meta moment as a powerful emotional regulation strategy that involves creating a cognitive pause between stimulus and response. This pause is made possible through self-awareness and mindfulness practices such as deep breathing and grounding. The meta moment offers the individual a critical space to choose a more effective and thoughtful reaction rather than an impulsive or reactive one. He candidly discusses the challenges of practicing this under stress, but highlights its transformative potential when developed over time. The meta moment doesn't simply calm the nervous system, it expands cognitive flexibility and self-compassion, allowing people to act as their best selves. Mindfulness is framed not merely as relaxation, but as a gateway to sophisticated emotional management and improved interpersonal effectiveness. Central to Dr. Brackett's approach is the use of cognitive strategies that include reframing, spatial and temporal distancing, and compassionate self-talk. He explains how negative self-talk, often internalized from early experiences of shame, judgment, or neglect, can imprison people in cycles of self-criticism and emotional pain. Learning to become emotion scientists by observing, naming, and questioning these thoughts is essential for healing and growth. Spatial distancing, likened to viewing an experience as a movie, helps diffuse emotional charge by creating psychological space. Temporal distancing, which asks what impact an event will have in the future, helps diminish the overwhelming immediacy of feelings. By consciously stepping back to reconsider thoughts and feelings, people can interrupt destructive narratives and nurture kinder internal dialogues. Dr. Brackett candidly addresses the systemic challenges in scaling emotional intelligence education. Despite overwhelming evidence linking emotional skills to academic and workplace performance, mental health, and social connection, implementation remains patchy. Schools, workplaces, and policymakers often prioritize short-term gains and hard skills over social-emotional learning, delaying needed cultural shifts. He draws attention to the misalignment of incentives in society, where the benefits of emotional education are diffuse and long-term, while costs are immediate. Although technology and AI-based tools promise scalable solutions, Dr. Brackett warns they cannot replace the relational and nuanced human components that emotional intelligence training requires. Advocacy, starting with informed parents and educators, is needed to bring emotional intelligence into mainstream education and organizational practices. Relying on compelling real-life stories, Dr. Brackett illustrates how emotional intelligence and regulation skills produce profound transformations, from individuals overcoming addictions to leaders who create healthier, more productive workplaces. His own journey, marked by trauma, resilience, and continuous learning, provides a blueprint for others navigating their emotional lives. He offers a hopeful message. While everyone struggles with emotional challenges and setbacks, learning to be curious and compassionate about failures propels growth. Progress comes not from perfection, but from persistent practice, experimentation, and self-forgiveness. Emotional intelligence, he argues, is not an innate gift, but a lifelong developmental process accessible to all who embark on the journey. In closing, Dr. Brackett reframes emotional intelligence as an essential aspect of one's identity, suggesting that being emotionally intelligent should become as natural and integral as being healthy or fit. Achieving this requires intentionality, practice, and a cultural shift that values feelings as informative data rather than weaknesses to hide. By embracing permission to feel, cultivating self-awareness, expanding the meta-moment, and relying on empathetic social connections, individuals and society as a whole can transform their relationships and lives.